So major development today in the ongoing crisis in West Asia with the assassination of the chief of Hamas's political bureau, Ismail Haniyeh. This has been a event that is being closely tracked around the world. Of course, coming out very quickly after the assassination was several elements of Hamas blaming the assassination on Zionist elements, referring, of course, to Israel. The Israeli government not saying much about its involvement in the death of Haniyeh. But joining us now to unpack what has happened, exactly what the implications are for the region more broadly, is Kabir Taneja of the Observer Research Foundation. He tracks West Asia extremely closely. Kabir, welcome. Could you tell us a little bit about what has happened, who Haniyeh was, what are the implications, what is the scale of his death, and what's happened today?
Thanks, Shashank. I think the scale is a bit premature to ascertain right now, since it has just been reported. But it is very interesting that this has happened and the time at which this has happened. First and foremost, because the coronation of the new Iranian president was in play. In Tehran, there were lots of leaders, including from the Arab world, who were in Tehran. And the fact that this has happened at a time when the capital city of Iran would be teeming with the military, it really says something about both capability and intent. I'm presuming that, let's say, Israel is behind it. Right now, of course, no one has taken credit for it, and it's very important for us to wait for that before taking anything. But this really can be seen from two lenses. The first lens is, of course, on October 7, 2023, Hamas was responsible for puncturing the sense of security for Israel. Israel is a security-reliant country. It's a survivalist country because it is surrounded by countries and neighbors it has fought wars with. But over the recent period of time, it has made amends with a lot of them, including likes of UAE, Egypt, Saudi. They all have sort of, not Saudi directly, but at least they have functional relationships with them. So it's the Israel-Iran dynamic which is at the center of the West Asian crisis right now. And there is very little that can be done at this point of time to resolve that, and that is where this event comes into play as an important one, because of course, Ismail Haniyeh, the chief of the political bureau, has gained a lot of movement around himself over the past couple of months. He's at the center of negotiations for the Israeli hostages still captured in Gaza, and also he's the political authority of what is happening in Gaza as far as Hamas is concerned. I think there was a target on his back from October itself, but the fact that Israel has chosen to do this now after the attack on the football field in Golan Heights, and a very contentious visit of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the US, where he was repeatedly told to start drawing this war down. Maybe we are seeing a start of that happening from the Israeli side.
Right. Could I also ask you how you see this in conjunction with, what's happened with Hezbollah as well? Of course, another top leader of Hezbollah assassinated there, the Israeli military coming out and saying that taking responsibility for what has happened. So how are you seeing what's happened just over the last 24 hours or so on with Hezbollah, as well as what's happened now with Haniyeh in Tehran? How are you seeing how the Israeli military has taken this?
Look, the Hezbollah part, I think, is or was always a little bit less in intensity when it comes to the geopolitics of things, because the Israelis have targeted Hezbollah and their hierarchy and leadership for a long period of time. So even if their second or third in command, other than Nasrallah, is eliminated, usually they are very swiftly also replaced. And by the way, same is the case with Hamas. So people like Khalid Mashal and others are at some point going to step in. But why I think Haniyeh is a much bigger deal right now is because of his centrality in the hostage negotiations. Increasingly, he was the person that was talking with not just the Qataris where he was staying, but also with Americans, also with the Egyptians, and at some level I'm also sure with the Israelis, considering how many trips the Israelis have made to Qatar over the past couple of years. He's not an unknown entity of what has taken place over the past couple of years. Everyone in the Vicinity knew who Ismail Haniyeh was and how to deal with him. Even the Israelis dealt with Hamas when they had to. So that kind of replacement comes with a level of uncertainty, of whatever is going to happen now. Is someone going to is the replacement even going to be more dog-headed than Haniyeh was, or are they going to be more accommodative? The argument could lean towards accommodation, because I think there were a level of tensions between Haniyeh and the Al-Qassam brigades in Gaza, led by Yahya Sinwar, who were actually fighting in Gaza. Haniyeh was increasingly seen as the political guy in Qatar, in a fair amount of safety, as a bridge between what the Al-Qassam brigades want and as far as the hostage situation goes. So now how do these dynamics change,
Right.
Is the question. But I think, the Israelis specifically have time and again showed the capacity of conducting eliminations as and when they please.
Right.
It's always the question of what are the political repercussion and costs going to be of an assassination like this at a point like this.
Right, and if I could draw you out a little bit on that, what you specifically said about Haniyeh being responsible for hostage negotiations, some of course suggesting that he was slightly less of a hardliner within the organization. Could I ask you to give us a sense of what this means now for the hostage negotiations, for the broader conversation about a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas?
The hostage situation specifically is a very important and interesting juncture now, because unless the Israelis have calculated who is going to be the replacement, and they have calculated that the replacement may well be a little bit more palliative to both them and even maybe someone like Yahya Sinwar, that the hostage negotiations may go fast. But that also, you have to remember, the hostage negotiations are a two-way street. It also depends on what kind of demands the Netanyahu government puts forward. We are going to see an uptick in the popularity of the Netanyahu government also at this point of time, considering how embattled his government has been over the past couple of months. So there are multiple facets to this. I think the best at this point of time, I don't want to offer any on any views and opinions that are not going to turn out according to what takes place over the next 48 to 72 hours. But I think right now it'll be interesting just to wait and watch and see what happens within Hamas first, rather than jumping to conclusion if Israel and Iran are going to go into a more formalized confrontation here on.
Right. Could I also ask you a little bit about, I hate to draw you out on this again and ask you to get ahead of yourself, but in terms of the international reactions to something like this, of course not much, we're waiting for a lot of international reactions, but how is the world going to see something like this? Of course, at one level, as you mentioned, Israel has carried out assassinations on foreign soil before, and of course taking out a Hamas leader seems within the legitimate purview of things, especially given their involvement in the October 7th attacks, but also some concern that is being talked about what this means for possible escalation, what this means for possible, a possible end to hostilities and the conflict. So could you lay out how the global reactions to this will play out?
Look, the global reactions are still predominantly yet to come, but I would be very surprised if this kind of action was taken by Israel without the Americans at least being informed, if not involved. And we have to also remember, President Joe Biden has already stepped aside from the race, so domestic compulsions for him as far as politics go and decision making goes are really not on the table anymore. He's much more free to support these kind of decision making than what he was, let's say, even 3-4 weeks ago. As far as escalation goes, look, if the Iranians did not escalate beyond the point after the killing of Qasem Soleimani in 2020, they're not going to risk a full-out war with Israel and their partners over Ismail Haniyeh. I think Ismail Haniyeh, beyond a point, is one part of their axis of resistance. I mean, arguably, the Houthis have been more active than beyond a point than Hamas has been, as far as regional calculations are concerned. And if Haniyeh is smoothly replaced, I don't see a big reason for Iran to escalate this into a regional conflagration than what it is right now, because that will be very detrimental to their grander plans of both engaging at a point with the West in the future, but also having this strong sort of push regionally, which has succeeded, by the way, as we can see with the number of Arab leaders that were there for the coronation of the Iranian President Pezeshkian.
Right. My last question to you again is if you could end by laying out where you see the conflict that has been going on right now. There's been a lot of talk, of course. A lot of our viewers would have noticed, increased tensions with Lebanon over the last couple of days and weeks. Of course, conflict in Gaza continuing. How do you see this in the broader context of the conflict, where it stands right now, where it's likely to develop going forward?
I think, look, the only reason why this can escalate right now is, let's say, if something similar to April 2024 happens and Iran launches a whole bunch of strikes, and Israel is also increasingly, or is for some reason unable to counter them effectively, and there are casualties there. That can lead to an extended sort of confrontation taking forward. But as far unless, and Iran will respond. I'm not sure how it will respond, and I don't think anyone is sure how it will respond. But I think it will do its calculations very well. It's a very smart country, whether people like it or not. They operate in a very smart manner. They calculate their risks very well. Is Ismail Haniyeh's assassination big enough for them to start something afresh? I'm not sure. But the bigger problem for Iran is not about Haniyeh dying. It is about Haniyeh being killed in Tehran. I think that is a bigger semiotical problem with them as far as how this entire episode is looking for Iran. The fact that, was Haniyeh is safer in Qatar than he was in Iran, considering Iran has built up the axis of resistance narrative. That may be something that they can look to push against by mobilizing some tactical operation against Israel. But by Hamas and Haniyeh itself, I think he will be replaced by another person, and Iran would be largely happy with that kind of change taking place now that Haniyeh is not there. It has happened before also, it's not new.
Right. So Kabir Vinayza there of the ORF laying out for us what exactly has happened with the Haniyeh assassination, who he was, why his death matters, how Hamas is likely to react to this chain of events, and what it means for regional players, what it means for the United States, what it means for Israel, as well as for the conflict more generally in the region. Kabir, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us about this, and thank you to the viewer for joining us at India Today Global.